Okay.
I hate this song. Turn it off.
Salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Have a great day.
Okay, we're going to be doing a new unit. You need to get out your books to chapters 15, 16.
Why don't we make a movie?
Right. We're going to make a movie. But I do have a movie we can watch. It's a movie on the Civil War. But before we start it, what were some things that led up to the Civil War? Stacy.
Eli Whitney. Yeah, he invented the cotton gin.
Okay, so what?
The invention of the cotton gin made separating the cottons from the seeds a lot faster, so they wanted more slaves to pick the cotton from the fields.
Okay, good. So what did that do as far as the country? Jenny.
The cotton farmers in the South didn't want the industrial North telling them what to do.
Okay, good. Okay, we have this video on the Civil War. Let's watch this. This is the introduction.
Good day, this is Sylvia Lee for CWC News. We're going live to the conference room where the Compromise of 1850 is already being discussed.
Judge Thaddeus Newport presiding.
All be seated. Judge Henry Clay, state your case.
Our union shall and will fall apart if we don't do something about it. Therefore, I have designed a compromise that should solve all the union's problems on the topic slavery. This compromise I'm proposing to you shall be called the Compromise of 1850. It shall consist of 6 parts. Number 1, California would be admitted a free state.
Quiet, please.
Number 2, the remainder of Mexican cession would be organized into 2 territories, Utah, and New Mexico. Presumably,
We have silence in the court, please.
presumably, the people of those territories could decide whether they wanted slavery when they applied for admission state. Number three.
Please, people.
Number three. Some lands in dispute between Texas and New Mexico would be admitted to New Mexico.
You'll be thrown out of this room if you're not quiet.
Number four. Texas will receive $10 million from the government for giving up their land.
Please, people.
Number five. The buying and selling of slaves, but not slavery itself, will be prohibited in the District of Columbia.
This is my final warning.
Number six, Congress would enact a strict law requiring that runaway slaves be returned to their owners. And that is a compromise of 1850.
John C. Calhoun, state your case.
Mr. Calhoun is very ill right now, and I will be his interpreter. He insists that the South needs more protection, and he demands that the government should bring back political balance between the North and South and stop tampering with the slavery question.
I'll be back in a few minutes to give my decision. My decision is that the Compromise of 1850 will pass. Case closed.
Good evening. I'm Eric Thompson. This is CWN 6 o'clock news on the night of February 17th, 1850. Stacy?
Thank you, Art. Tonight we will bring you live coverage of the news conference discussing the compromise between the North and the South. Ryan Anderson is on the scene reporting. Ryan?
Thank you, Stacy. We are here at the conference room where Mr. Henry Clay will give his speech on the Compromise of 1850. This is Ryan Anderson reporting for CWN News.
I'll be talking to you about the Compromise of 1850. The Compromise of 1850 was a series of acts passed by the United States in hope to settle the strife between slave owners in the South and people against slavery in the North. Are there any questions?
Yes, Mr. Clay. How will the compromise change the states?
The Compromise of 1850 will settle the strife between the North and the South by stopping slavery.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What happens if Texas refuses to give up any of its land to New Mexico?
They will still hold claims to the New Mexican territory, and slavery will still go on in Texas.
When will the compromise go into action?
The series of acts should be passed around the year 1850.
Does the North agree about the runaway slaves having to go back to their masters?
No, because the North did not believe in slavery and thought it should be banned. Thank you for your questions.
And Mr. Calhoun, why will the Negroes consider the Compromise of 1850 no compromise at all?
Because they didn't get their freedom.
This is Laura Zinken reporting live outside the conference room.
Thank you, Laura, for reporting live from the Compromise of 1850 with Henry Clay and Mr. Calhoun. This sure will be a controversial issue for years to come, won't it, Sherry?
Yes, it will, because it hasn't addressed important states' rights and slavery issues.
Yes, it sure will. That's all for tonight.
Have a good evening.
This is CWC saying good night.
No, because Lisa has a list of slaves where they're still filming. He's like, no, right there, because there's someone right there. Don't look at
This is CWC Channel 18 News. I have with me today President Millard Fillmore. Hello.
Hello.
Now, why did you approve the Compromise of 1850?
Well, I feel our nation is in great danger, and I'm trying to avoid a war between North and South.
And who do you think will be nominated next for president?
I feel I am a strong candidate for our next election.
And why did you replace former President Zachary Taylor's cabinet?
I replaced these men with other men who led the fight for compromise.
And how do you feel about free blacks being kidnapped and brought into slavery?
I'm opposed to slavery and I want it stopped.
How do you feel about California becoming a free state and why?
I am pleased that California is now a free state because now we have territorial government for Utah and New Mexico, and they can make their own decisions about slavery.
Thank you for joining us today.
It's a great pleasure.
This is Jill Olson with CWC Channel 18 News.
Live from Washington, D.C., this is CWC Channel 18. I'm Joe Parker, and today, Stephen Douglas was reelected for senator. She told the story and the world wept at the wrongs and cruelties it had not known. Today, Denise Cordova interviews Harriet Beecher Stowe.
Thank you, Joe. Good morning. This is Denise Cordova, here with the author of Uncle Tom's Cabin, Harriet Beecher Stowe. Mrs. Stowe, your book has been out for 7 months now, and a month ago it was made into a play. Did you ever expect your book to be a big seller?
No, in fact, the first publisher I went to said that Uncle Tom's Cabin was unlikely to sell, so he wouldn't print it.
Let's go into a sketch now. The picture is so terrifying. Why is it?
The sketch is terrifying, but the worst part about it is that it has its own parallel. The caption under this in the book says that sometimes when the women and young girls are sent to the whipping houses, other slaves must whip them, or they too are flogged. This way, the master isn't doing any dirty work. I tried to let the public know how brutal slavery really is. It is said, there is nothing to save but the character of the master.
Slaves aren't really that bad. We treat our slaves good. We give them room and board, and we feed them.
Most slaves are lucky if they even get enough food to eat. Slaves are being tortured as though they were never humans, branded like cattle, sold the exact same way as horses. The mothers and children are being split up by the slave traders, and the mothers will never see their children again. We haven't realized that their feelings are just the same as ours, and love hurts just as bad.
If they are getting split up like that, what are your feelings towards it?
I pity the mothers that are constantly being made childless by the American slave traders. I ask the mothers of America, is this something to encourage, to be defended, or to sympathize with in complete silence?
Mrs. Stowe, what about the free states? Are they to blame as well?
Definitely. They are to blame even more. Free states have defended, encouraged, and definitely they have participated. They have not the apology for education or custom.
If Congress was to ever give Negroes rights, what would they desire most?
Education. There is nothing that the slaves will not do or give for their own or their children's education.
One last question before we go. What do you hope Uncle Tom's Cabin has and will accomplish?
I hope America will realize the tragedy that the slave auctions have brung us. Slaves deserve the same freedom as us. I hope that in the future, America will realize the horrible mistake that we have made and learn from it.
Thank you for being with us today, and good luck on your book. This is Denise Cordova with the author of Uncle Tom's Cabin, Harriet Beecher Stowe, on CWC Channel 18.
Hi, I'm Lisa Nicholson.
And I'm Jack Simmons.
This is the latest on the Kansas-Nebraska Act. Today, President Franklin Pierce signed the controversial Kansas-Nebraska bill into law. The Kansas-Nebraska bill was put forth by Senator Douglas and was designed to create two territories, Kansas and Nebraska, from the Louisiana Purchase land. Although the two territories lay north of the line drawn by the Missouri Compromise, the bill states that the two territories can decide on whether they want to allow slavery or not. Also in the news today, in Ripon, Wisconsin, a group of Whigs, unhappy Democrats, and members of a small Free Soilers party met in a church earlier today to talk about the forming of a new party. The name Republican Party was suggested. The group is made up of those who are against the Kansas-Nebraska Act and are planning on entering the upcoming presidential elections.
Now back.
In May of this year, 1854, Congress adopted the Kansas-Nebraska Act with a clear majority, and President Pierce signed it. The newly formed Republican Party demands that the Kansas-Nebraska Act and the Fugitive Slave Law be repealed. Hi, this is Laura Zinkan. I am filling in for Sylvia and Joe. They are on assignment. Since August of 1800, for the last 54 years, there have been many slave riots. Today we are going live to Sherry Maxonic in Kansas, where pro-slavery Missourians are threatening this free state.
This is Sherry Maxonic live from one of the many slave riots happening around the country. As you see behind me, many of the slaves are picking with signs and protesting for rights. Let's go interview one of them now. Why do you feel you have to be here today?
Because we deserve the same rights as any white American.
Well, don't you like being a slave?
What?
Good day, this is Sherry Maxonic.
And Sylvia Lee.
More and more blacks have met with violence as slave catchers have sought them out in the free states. These vicious slave catchers have used whatever means to capture them.
Yes, our CWC camera was present when slave catchers arrested Anthony Burns in free Boston.
We are fortunate tonight to have with us Mr. Anthony Burns.
Mr. Burns, that was a horrible beating. What can you tell us about your situation?
After I escaped from my slave master and went to Boston and lived there for 3 years as a free man, until I was captured by some slave catchers and thrown in jail, where I was then tried, and they decided that I was to be sent back with my slave master to Virginia. And my case came up again, and they decided that I was to be set free because it was wrong what they did. And that's why I'm here today. And I still get beat up often.
Was there any group that helped you?
Yes, the Boston Vigilance Committee.
Your trial took a year. How'd you feel about that?
I feel that it took them too long to finally realize that it wasn't right for me to go back after I was already been free.
Why did they capture you?
Because of the Federal Slave Act.
What is it like being a Negro?
It's hard often to cope with some of the things that happen, and it's really hard.
Thank you, Anthony Burns, for that wonderful interview.
Just in, James Buchanan elected 15th President of the United States.
This is Sherry.
and Sylvia, signing off for CWC Channel 18 News.
Have a good day.
Good evening. I'm Nadine, and this is March 6, 1857, CWN 6 o'clock news. Eric?
Thank you, Nadine. Tonight we are reporting on the Dred Scott case. We are now going to Krista, who is reporting to you live in the courtroom where Dred Scott is on trial.
Thank you, Eric. Hi, I'm Krista, reporting live for CWN News on the Dred Scott case in the Supreme Court. Today, Dred Scott, a Negro, is trying to become a free man, and the Chief Justice of the court will make that very important decision.
Hear ye, hear ye. The Supreme Court of the United States is now in session. The Honorable Roger Taney presiding.
I've heard good things about Justice Taney. He is known to be impartial on issues concerning slavery.
The Missouri Compromise of 1820 eased the tension for a while. It admitted Missouri as a slave state and Maine as a free state, keeping the number of slave states and free states equal. More important for the future, it declared that all land in the Louisiana Purchase north of 36 degrees and 30 degrees was to be free except for Missouri. The slavery question flared anew when the U.S. gained new territory as a result of the Mexican War. Again, we Americans argued whether this new land should be a slave or free. The Dred Scott case came to be at the center of this debate. On one hand, the case raised the simple question of one man's right to freedom. On the other hand, it was a test case. It asked the Supreme Court to decide if Congress should prohibit slavery in the United States.
Your Honors, the plaintiff, Mr. Scott, was in fact a slave in the state of Missouri. However, once his master took him into the free state of Illinois, Dred Scott became a legally free man.
You actually saying, Mr. Blair, that a slave automatically becomes free just because he steps into free soil?
The Missouri Compromise clearly states that slavery is not allowed in Illinois. When Mr. Scott was taken to a free state, he became free. The Illinois Constitution forbids slavery, so Dred Scott is a free man in Illinois.
Mr. Blair, is it your considerate opinion that property should be repossessed when a person moves from one state to another?
Well...
Answer the question, Mr. Blair.
Of course I don't. But in this case, I cannot see the analogy.
But do you see my point? Don't you? One's property is one's property, no matter where one lives.
I object.
Object to what? To the Fifth Amendment, which states that no person can have his property taken away without due process of law?
I do not object to the Fifth Amendment, but I do object to this assumption that a human life can be considered property in a nation which espouses freedom and democracy.
Tell the master that who will reimburse him for his financial loss.
I must state once again that I cannot see categorizing any human being as a piece of property, no matter how much someone has paid for him. What of the man who purchased stolen property? Doesn't he lose his money because what he bought isn't his? With your permission, Your Honors, a short recess.
Granted. Blair, you have brought this lawsuit before us on behalf of Mr. Scott, but some people have argued that slaves like Mr. Scott do not have the right to bring a lawsuit to court.
Are you suggesting that slaves have no legal rights in this country?
I'm merely wishing to explore the issue of citizenship in regards to those who are legally owned by another person.
How come I got this far if I have no right to sue?
This can mean real trouble for us. Let me try something.
Your Honors, standing Mrs. Margaret Browning.
As you wish, swear her in. Clerk.
Raise your right hand.
I promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
Mrs.
The decision uproar across the country. Many people lost respect for the Supreme Court. Instead of trying to soothe the strong feelings about slavery, the Dred Scott decision added fire to the conflict. Within the next few years, the United States will probably be fighting a civil war over these states' rights.
Chief Taney ruled today, even though a slave, Dred Scott had lived on free land in Illinois and Wisconsin. Because he retained to a slave lifestyle, he was returned as property. Mr. Scott, how do you feel about that?
I don't think it fair to sue my owner to bring him to the Supreme Court. And now they tell me I can't sue because I'm property.
Besides the impact on you, how does this affect other slaves?
The court says we can't be citizens at any state, and now this decision protects slavery and the masters and even in the North.
Thank you. Now back to Jack and Pat.
The Dred Scott case was as presumed in favor of slavery.
Saying that slavery is legal in the North as it is in the South, the court must see the Missouri Compromise as unconstitutional.
We'll keep you up to date on the slavery issue. I'm Pat Casey for CWN News. Good night.
Good morning, I'm Lisa Nicholson.
And I'm Nadine.
Today, the 27th of August, 1856, in Freeport, Lincoln and Douglas are at it again in the second debate.
Stacy Wigren is reporting.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Stacy Wigren for CWN News. We're here now with Stephen Douglas and Abraham Lincoln, senatorial candidates who will be debating. And now I'll turn it over to our speakers.
The Kansas-Nebraska Act goes against the Missouri Compromise.
The people have the right to popular sovereignty, the right of the settlers to determine their territory's future as a slave or free state.
So, you mean to tell me that the Missouri Compromise is not valid anymore?
It had to be done.
Mr. Douglas, I asked you to reconcile popular sovereignty with the Dred Scott decision.
It mattered not what the Supreme Court decided as to whether or not slavery might go into action. The territory under the Constitution cannot exist a day or an hour anywhere unless it is supported by local regulations.
Hi, I'm Rachel Hemmick for CWN News.
And I'm Jenny Pettit,
We will now bring you the camera at Harper Ferry.
where the raid is already in progress.
Hi, we are coming to you live from Harper's Ferry, where CWC has just heard a news tip that John Brown is planning a raid on a gun warehouse. looks as though Mr. John Brown has taken over the ammunition house, and we are going to attempt to interview with him. I'm Sarah Routson, reporting to you live at the John Brown's raid in Harpers Ferry, Virginia. Standing here with me is Mr. John Brown. John, we know you are the one that is leading this wild outrage. What is the reason for this?
I'm attempting to free the slaves of America. Slavery is the work of the devil.
I have heard that you have already committed a murder in Kansas. What do you have to say about this?
I have only one death to die. I will die fighting for this anti-slavery cause.
Thank you, Mr. John Brown. I'm sure everyone is interested to discover the outcome of this touchy issue. Look, there's Mr. Lee's army.
Come on, men.
There will be blood and tears soon to come. I, John Brown, am now quite certain that the crimes of this guilty land will never be purged away. But with blood, I had, as I now think, vainly flattered myself, that without much bloodshed, it might be done.
Hello, I'm Eric Thompson.
And I'm Stacy Wigrin for CWN.
Today on March 4th, 1861, Abraham Lincoln is inaugurated as the 16th President of the United States.
CWN managed to get on the scene and show the footage taped earlier today.
Stacy, wasn't Abraham Lincoln had some death threats against him?
Yes, in fact, he had to sneak into Washington by train late last night.
Did he wear a disguise?
No, they wanted him to, but he wouldn't let them.
Let's go to Bianca Nelius, where she is reporting. Bianca?
Thank you, Eric. I'm here at the White House reporting Lincoln's inauguration. Behind us here, the rest of the media and Congress are waiting for Abraham Lincoln and his speech.
Ladies and gentlemen, Abraham Lincoln.
In compliance with a custom as old as the government itself, I appear before you to address you briefly and to take in your presence the oath prescribed by the Constitution of the United States to be taken by the President before he enters on the execution of his office. I do consider it necessary to present for me to discuss those matters of administration about which are not special anxiety or excitement. Apprehension seems to exist among the people of the southern states that by accession of the Republican administration, their property and their peace and personal security are to be endangered.
Hi, we're back for a brief news break. Abraham Lincoln is kind of an interesting man. In 31, he failed in business. In 32, he was defeated in legislative. And in 33, again, he failed in business. In 34, he was elected in legislative. In 36, he had a nervous breakdown. In 38, he was defeated for speaker. And then in 40, he was defeated for elector.
But finally, in 46, he was elected to Congress. He was defeated for Senate in 55 and defeated for Vice President in 56. He was defeated for Senate again in 58, but then he was elected president in now.
Is Abe Lincoln for or against slavery?
Well, he didn't say whether he was for or against slavery. He thinks it should be decided by the Constitution and by the Supreme Court, not by him.
Plainly, the central idea of secession is the essence of anarchy. A majority held in restraint by the Constitution checks the limitation and always changing easily. The deliberate changes of popular opinions and sentiments is the only true sovereign of free people who ever reject it does, of necessity, fly to anarchy or to despotism. Unanimity is impossible.
Interesting comment, wasn't it, Eric?
Yes, it was, Stacy.
Does it sound like Abraham Lincoln will let any southern states secede from the United States?
No, Abraham Lincoln acts like a father to the country, but like a father, he won't let his son leave the family.
Why should there not be a patient confidence in the ultimate justice of the people? Is there any better or equal hope in the world? In our present differences, is either party without faith of being in the right? If the almighty ruler of the nations with his internal truth and justice be on your side of the north or yours of the south, that the truth and that the justice will surely prevail by the judgment of the great tribunal of the American people. By the frame of the government under which we live, this same people have wisely given to our public servants but little power for mischief, and have with equal wisdom provided for the future return of that their little to their own hands have very short intervals. While the people retain their virtue and vigilance, no administration by any extreme of the weakness or folly can very seriously injure the government in the short space of 4 years. My countrymen, one and all, think calmly and well upon this whole subject. Nothing valuable can be lost by taking time. If there be an object to hurry any of you in hot haste to step which you would never take deliberately, that the object will frustrate by taking time, but no good object can be frustrated by it. Such of you are now dissatisfied, still have the old Constitution unimpaired, and on the sensitive point, the laws of your own framing under it, while the new administration will have no immediate power, if it would, to change either. If it were admitted that you were dissatisfied, hold the right side in dispute, there still is no single good reason for precipitation action. Intelligence, patriotism, Christianity, and firm reliance on him who has never yet forsaken and favored his land are still competent to adjust the best way all our present difficulty. In your hands, my dissatisfied fellow countrymen, and not in mine, is the momentous issue of the Civil War. The government will not assail you. You can have no conflict with being yourselves the aggressors. You have no oath registration in heaven to destroy the government, while I shall have the most solemn one to preserve, protect, and defend it. I am loath to close. We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies. Though passion may have strained it, we must not break our bonds of affection. The mystic cords of memory stretching from every battlefield and patriot grave to every living heart and hearthstone all over this broad land will yet swell the course of the Union when again touched, as surely they will be, by the better angels of our nature.
That was a fine speech given by our new president, Abraham Lincoln.
Yes, our 16th president is headed for troubled times with states' rights, succession, and slavery.
That's all for us for the night of March 4th, 1861.
Hello, I'm Jack Simmons.
And I'm Pat Casey.
We're here to bring you the latest on the strife in South Carolina.
If you remember, in 1833, there was a compromise tariff bill that kept the state from succeeding, but the slavery question was still up for debate.
When Abraham Lincoln was elected as president, there was an overwhelming uproar for succession.
As we know, South Carolina was the first state to remove itself from the Union on December 20th of last year.
South Carolina believed it had the right to withdraw from the Union voluntarily since it joined voluntarily.
Until this is resolved, we will bring you the latest in U.S. news. This is Pat Casey.
And I'm Jack Simmons, signing off.
And I'm Lisa Nicholson.
It's now official, the war has begun.
As we know, the soldiers of the Confederate States of America have been taking over U.S. forts and arsenals in the South over the last couple of months.
In most cases, the commanders of the forts have been giving up without a fight. But recently, Major Robert Anderson refused to turn over Fort Sumner in the harbor of Charleston, South Carolina, to the Confederate soldiers.
For Lincoln, who has just been elected, this was a very tense time. He knew Anderson's men were about to run out of food.
He told South Carolinian authorities that he was sending supplies to the fort, but no more soldiers. Well, Lisa, what what are the war goals for both sides?
The question of peace lay in the hands of the Confederates. Jefferson Davis met with his cabinet, and those eager for war won out. Because of this, early this morning of April 12, 1861, a fierce bombardment of Fort Sumter began. War now looks inevitable.
Nobody died on either side. Union Robert Anderson, the commander of Fort Sumter, surrendered to General Beauregard of the South. And this is Matt Whitemarsh reporting, signing off for CWC.
Battle is taking place here. Let's take a look around.
Go, you guys.
We are experiencing technical difficulties with the audio portion of our broadcast. Please do not attempt to adjust your set.
We are filming live at this Battle of Bull Run. The Union General McDowell's army attacked the Confederate group led by General P.T. Beauregard. It seems the rebel Union were too strong. In fact, there is a rumor that they had intercepted and received advance warning of the attack. The Federals had to retreat, badly beaten. We can see now the Southern Confederates pillaging the Union dead. They will strip the better equipped Northern of money, guns, backpacks, hats, and even their clothes. Let's see if we can get an interview with General Beauregard. Now in Virginia on July 23, 1861. Today the Battle of Bull Run has just ended. I'm here now with General Beauregard and General Jackson. Now Beauregard, I understand you and General McDowell attended the same military school. Well, did you ever think that you'd be fighting against each other?
No, a person usually wouldn't expect to start a war against his own fellow student.
General Jackson, and how did you and your brigade turn into a defeat? Turn your defeat into a victory?
Well, we were determined, and more reinforcements came later.
Thank you. Sarah from CWC News signing off. We have caught up with the retreating Union Army. General McDowell, how many men are in your army?
31,000. However, 2,900 died and some were injured in this gruesome fight.
I see. McDowell, when you attacked, why were you so confident about winning?
Well, I had a lot more troops in my army, therefore it looked more promising for me.
Thank you. This is Sarah Routson reporting with CWC. We're here with Dr. Dundon, who will soon be performing surgery on one of the poor, unfortunate soldiers wounded in the Battle of Bull Run.
Oh,
here comes the soldier now.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Tell me, doctor, what can be done for the pain?
Well, anesthesia was developed in 1846, but ether was first. They've been experimenting with chloroform, but it's only available in Europe and some northern cities. All we can really do is amputate.
Hold him down, boys. Hold him down.
Is very crude. The dirty, bloody smock the doctor wears is a tribute to the many operations he has done. It is said that the record for leg amputation is 38 seconds. Let's watch Dr. Dundon.
doctor will cut away any tendons and ligaments away from the bone so that he can get a clean cut at the bone. So far, the doctor has taken 32 seconds. Doctor, has the patient...
No, he just passed out from shock.
Is the amputation a success, doctor?
Yes. The leg has been amputated cleanly. And the Civil War has brought made medicine important again, made many new advances.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Jenny Pettit, WN News, here with Mr. General T.J. Stonewall Jackson after the first battle of Bull Run. Mr. Jackson, why is winning this small battle important to you?
Even though it was a small battle, I feel it was an important win because it was the first battle. Maybe it will let the Union know how great we are.
How do you feel about losing 2,000 of your men?
I feel badly about losing many of my men, but most of all, I lost my best man, Kirkpatrick.
Why is he so important?
Because he was a great soldier and he was loyal to the rest of the Confederacy.
Thanks, Mr. Jackson. And back to our anchors at CWN headquarters.
Hi, I'm Stacy.
And I'm Jake.
Today, Belle Boyd was arrested on a warrant signed by Edwin Stanton, Secretary of War.
Belle Boyd has been a spy for the Confederate side. This is the reason for being arrested.
Just a few years ago, Boyd shot and killed a young soldier who was forcing entry.
She was then tried and acquitted for justified homicide when officials under General Braddock's command quartered at the Boyd household.
Boyd overheard plans to overtake Fort Royal. She then took these plans to General T.J. Stonewall Jackson.
Boyd continued to be a spy for the Confederate side. For CWN, I'm Jake Wake.
And I'm Stacy Wickren.
Hi, this is Billy Davies with CWN. This is March 8th, 1862. The Confederate ship Virginia is being challenged by the Union State ship Monitor. The battle is important because they are the first iron ships that have ever fought and will change the face of naval warfare from this day forward. We are going to military expert Ryan Anderson, who will give us a detailed simulation of this historic battle.
Hello, I'm Ryan Anderson reporting on the battle Hampton Roads. This historic occasion was fought between two ironclad ships. The Virginia, which was formerly the USS Monitor, Merrimack. It was sunk when Norfolk was captured by the Confederate forces, but it was raised by the Confederates and iron plated to be turned into the CSS Virginia. It has 8 guns and 2 more ports for extra guns, but it has a sharp deep draft, which is not very ideal for maneuvering in this type of situation where the water is shallow. On the other hand, the Monitor, is a very revolutionary design. It's low in the water, has a very shallow draft, and a revolving turret. While only having 2 guns, it still has proven to be a powerful ship. At 6 a.m., before the Monitor had arrived, the Merrimack had already attacked, drove the Minnesota aground, and sunk the USS Congress, a steamer. When the Monitor arrived, the Merrimack had withdrawn, and the Monitor rafted up alongside the Minnesota, which was still aground. At 8 a.m., the Merrimack began to close on the Monitor and the Minnesota while firing volleys of cannonballs. At that time, the Monitor veered off from dock from the Minnesota and began firing to eventually come to the position of resting less than 2 yards apart. The battle raged on for 8 hours. The only ships that were sunk during this battle were two steamers, both Confederate and Union. The Minnesota, at time to time, did fire volleys in. The only damage done to the Merrimack was damage to the smokestack, and one of her cannons were hit. No crew casualties. The Monitor pulled away after the Merrimack had run out of ammunition, and the battle ended. This has truly been a historic occasion.
Hi, I'm Missy Fletcher.
And I'm Cindy Campbell.
September 1862, Lee, a general for the Confederate Army, invaded parts of Maryland with 50,000 troops.
On September 13th, a Union soldier found a copy of Lee's plans to attack. Lee learned of his loss and took up a position at Antietam Creek.
McClellan, a Union leader, attacked September 17th, which gave the Confederate forces time to reunite after Jackson's success at Harper Ferry.
A series of powerful Union attacks forced Lee to retreat to Virginia. 12,500 Northerners were killed or wounded, and almost 11,000 Southerners.
It is said that the Confederate retreat gave the North the victory that Lincoln has been waiting for.
Charge!
Live with General Grant after the Battle of Shiloh. General Grant, why was this war important?
This war was important because it set the tone for the war.
Was this expected?
No, they caught us sleeping in our tents, and we lost a lot of good boys.
What was the significance of this war?
Well, the good defensive line helped us, and the cannons was what made us win, because the cannons are great. They took out almost all their men, and without the cannons, there's no way we could have won.
I heard you had reinforcements. Was this good?
Yes, if it wasn't for General Buell and his men, we would have all been killed.
Thank you, General Grant. This is Jenny Pett reporting live for CWN News.
And I'm Cindy.
Today, January 1st, 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation has taken effect.
President Abraham Lincoln declared free all slaves residing in the territory in the rebellion against the federal government.
This does not apply to slaves in the border states fighting on the Union side or for slaves in other areas under Union control.
This document shows that the Civil War is now being fought to end slavery.
The Union Army has been making generous payments to men who have volunteered to join the Union Army.
But now more men are needed. Congress passed the first draft law in the U.S. history.
The draft is the process by which men are selected for military service without their express consent.
Many say the draft law is unfair. Men can hire substitutes or be excused from the draft by paying $300.
New York City is the scene of angry and destructive protests against the draft. Mobs have been running loose through the city for many days.
Nearly 1,000 people have been killed or injured.
For CDLBN, I'm Jake Wake.
And I'm Cindy Campbell.